You want to look that up before we look like assholes?
We already look like assholes.
I'm Arizona Family political editor Dennis Welch.
Dennis, fake news Welch. Try to tell the truth.
And this is the Politics Unplugged podcast.
Dennis, if you have a problem with substance abuse, I am more than willing to talk to you anytime you need.
Welcome back to another edition of the Politics Unplugged podcast edition, and I'm joined this week by Democrat Tony Cani and Republican Stan Barnes. Thank you both for being here. It's just been a trying time trying to make sense of politics and cover everything, and it's been, again,
we're going to be able to explain all of it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's going to make sense to everybody
in a
who's listening.
series of 10-second sound bites. If we could we can get this episode done, I think, in 5 minutes.
Yeah, when did that rule come into play? When have you ever used it? Never.
If we could just break it all down in 5 minutes, I'd be happy. It'd be a great podcast.
Do it. One word answers only. Go.
Will the border referral succeed? Go.
There you
yes
go.
or no?
Yeah.
Depends on what you mean by succeed.
Success?
But in all seriousness, let's start there. That's the big issue down at the state capitol. Republicans trying to put this border security bill, bypass the governor, go straight to the voters. But it seems like Senator Ken Bennett has a problem with this. He wants to keep protections in place for the so-called dreamers, the DACA people who were brought here as young children through no fault of their own. He doesn't think that that they should ever face deportation, regardless of what happens in the future. He wants them protected. That doesn't happen in this Border Security Act that they're trying to get to the ballot. Stan, you've known Mr. Bennett for a long time. He says his vote is contingent on some of this stuff. Is he a man of his word on this?
Yeah, I think he is. He's already proved it. They were going to do it last week, and they didn't because he's not ready. And, of course, none of our Democratic friends are going to support it. So he is a man of his word, and I think he's an authentic individual. He's quirky. He's an interesting human being with a lot of complexities. He goes this way and he goes that way. But on this point, I think he just simply believes it and feels the license to exert that. I believe they're going to amend the document in order to please him and get the 16th vote in the Senate.
And Tony, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, Ken Bennett also wants some different language, or he talked about this. One of the key criticisms of this measure they want to send to the voters is, how do you enforce this statewide? Because they say, it would empower this would empower local police to enforce federal immigration laws by making it a state crime to enter Arizona illegally. And we're asked, like, how would somebody be detained by violating this law if it was passed? And we're told, well, they'd need probable cause, and that probable cause would be actually witnessing somebody cross the border into Arizona illegally. Well, how do you do that if you stop somebody in Kingman or some other part of the state that's far away from the border? Is this something that you see Republicans as like an oversight? Is this something that they could amend to appease Ken Bennett?
This kind of policy comes from right-wing social media, right? Like, basically what it is it gonna play well on right-wing social media? And if it does, then they're going to push this kind of thing forward. I don't think they're thinking about those kind of policy considerations. I saw one of the legislators immediately, and I think it was Biasiucci, he said, look, you're going to hear soon that this is totally too expensive, that nobody can afford this, before I had actually heard anyone made that argument, because they know that, like, it's an unfunded mandate. They know that it is going to appeal to people who want there to be this kind of racial profiling, but they don't want to say it out loud. And it's exactly the kind of thing that Trump was hoping would be happening in states when he called the people in Congress who were going to vote for that comprehensive bill and killed it.
But voters want to see something done.
But that's what I was going to say. What it is, in addition to all that, is filling a vacuum that a majority of Arizonans will vote for. My Democratic friends know if it's on the ballot, it will be approved. Does that mean the people are wrong? Does that mean that this is a bad thing? That people are bad? I mean, it tests a lot of grand theories when you shit all over this thing as being some sort of bad policy, but it's going to pass. What does that say about Arizona? Do you not like Arizonans? Do you not like that raw democracy thing? So it turns things on its head for a lot of us.
But you're a lawmaker. You look at this legislation. You're a former lawmaker, I should say. Is this more about just putting something on the ballot, or or do you think this is good policy?
No, I'm not sure. I'm sure. Let me say it this way: I believe some legislators think it's good policy, but I think all of them believe it's good politics. And after all, we're in a political atmosphere, and they want to win the 2024 election. And Democrats own the open border problem. And Tony says it's right wing media. Yeah, they lead with that all the time, but it's much broader than that.
Well, I mean, like
so
what they're putting in the initiative is designed to appeal, like the specifics. Because why else would they want to put this DACA language in?
Yeah, fair enough.
Right, voters just approved in the last election.
Yes.
Things for Dreamers, right? Why else would they want to put it in? It's not because that might help us defeat this. They want to put it in because it's going to appeal to a very specific group of voters. That's not the mainstream Republican voter. And Ken Bennett, it seems, is standing up against that, which if he's able to get it out and it doesn't lose any of the other senators, potentially he could be helping them get this thing passed. Because I really do think that if it has something like that in it, it is an argument that we can use.
It reminds me, when 1070 was done so famously by Jan Brewer, before she signed it, she had primary opponents. Not a single Republican legislator was backing her for governor.
Oh, yeah.
And then she signed it, and the wave came, and it said, "Thank you, Jan, for doing this." And she rode that all the way through. And my Democratic friends who I admire said, "You've really screwed up because now Democrats are going to take the legislature." I mean, this is such an overreach by Republicans. Watch the counter. And, of course, Republicans gained seats in both bodies after that. This same thing, I think, is playing out in a lighter version. It's on the floor of the Senate or the floor of the House. Everyone says it's 1070 light, and it kind of is politically. Yeah. But I don't think it's going to harm Republicans. It's going to help them.
I think the politics is different in the state than it was back then. I think there's a much stronger, more robust argument against this right now than there was in 1070. I think one of the things with 1070, if I'm correct, I think immediately after its passage, I believe it was approved by the voters, or had a 70% approval rating.
Yes, some big number
like that, because there wasn't much of an organized effort opposing that bill at this time. That's completely different right now.
Yeah, there'll be a really big effort in opposition to it, and I think that there's also like a memory in the Arizona public about the turmoil that it caused. And I think that, you've heard some of even like the business organizations that have opposed this saying that it's an unfunded mandate and all these. They've also said, hey, look, we're really worried about what this is going to do to the image of Arizona. I think one thing that you won't see that you saw then is calls for boycotts and things like that. I think that opponents have figured out that is not a good strategy. And that there's other ways to fight this. So I think the dynamic here is a little bit different, but it's true. Like anyone who denies the fact that voters are concerned about immigration for whatever the reason, they're deluding themselves.
That's none of this would be happening if the Biden White House was doing what the Trump White House did on the border. This bill wouldn't exist.
What separate families?
You call it what you want. I mean, it may be tough on the border. You're picking out one particular fun thing, but I mean, get above it and look down. The problem is big today. It wasn't as big then. But Democrats own this dead cat at their door.
But I would also say, like, none of this would be happening if Donald Trump's presidential campaign didn't kill the most conservative piece of legislation that had a majority of people in the House and the Senate to support it.
Yeah.
This wouldn't have happened. Like the way that it was put together, there was a lot of misinformation about it. There would have been times that the border would just have been shut down, and it would have happened multiple times since that
just
passed.
A refresher was, this is the cinema bipartisan effort.
Langford, right?
Langford, right.
And I do think that one of the things that we as Democrats have this time is like there's a lot of Republican talks video saying, we were going to pass this, but Republicans killed this. And so I think there's a little bit more of a debate about who's to blame on this, but I do think that people are like, "Hey, this is a legitimate issue."
I was going to say to Stan's
that.
point was like, no matter what, who's to blame for that or not, this is a chance to give Arizonans a say in this and feel like they're doing something.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm not sure voters get the memo that that Donald Trump crashed that bipartisan deal. I think they're mad about the border, and they feel like no one's doing anything. And it's more of a reptilian reaction than an intellectual reaction.
They'll probably see a lot of TV ads about it, though.
I'm sure
With
we will.
Republicans saying that it was Donald Trump's fault.
Probably will.
No, I'm sure you will. Real quick, though, since, love to tap into your former lawmaker, state lawmaker resume out there. When you look at this piece of legislation, does this violate the single subject rule? I mean, because it seems like, and I've heard that this could be ripe for a challenge on that level. I mean, there is a law in Arizona that they wanted to avoid loading up ballot initiatives like Christmas trees, just hanging all sorts of stuff on there, so you had to keep it to a single subject. Because this Border Security Act also contains provisions in there to combat fentanyl and some other stuff. Could this be struck down as violating that single subject?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm no legal expert, but I think that's a pathway that will be litigated by opponents. It's a traditional problem for initiatives by citizens or by legislators to put too much in, and then eventually to lose the whole thing because they went too far with it.
All right, let's move on now. Let's talk about new polling coming out in the presidential race, and they were looking at the swing states, which Arizona happens to be one of those key pivotal swing.
We love that, man.
I know, right? I'm
Yes.
sure people who are listening to this right now are well aware of the fact that we are one of the key pivotal swing states that could decide who's in the White House and the balance of power and whatever. The polling was interesting because it looked at those swing states. It was a New York Times Siena poll. And in most of the cases, it seemed like the Democratic candidates were running well ahead of Joe Biden in these states, and then the numbers were not good for the incumbent president on this. So, Tony, I mean, what the hell is Biden's problem here?
Well,
it seems like it's a Biden problem. And Democrats, are they hitting the panic button? Should they be hitting the panic button?
I don't think they're hitting the panic button. In 2020, the Senate candidates ran ahead of Joe Biden, too. I do think that people really wish his numbers were better when it comes to his favorables, for sure, his views on the economy, these kinds of things. I'm not sitting here saying like things are in a rosy position, but I still think it's like definitely winnable. Like when it comes to some of these states, one thing that it was interesting to me that I haven't fully digested is you've got these Midwest states where Biden is doing well according to these polls, and then you've got these. Georgia and then Nevada and Arizona where he's losing, but he's doing better in Arizona than in other states. In Nevada, according to this poll, he's really in trouble.
Down 13 in Nevada.
Right. And I think part of that is because the voters in Arizona are much more aware than in other states, and I've been saying this for a couple of years, of the risks of kind of the extreme far right wing of the party, because it's always been in the eyes of the public. It's been on the front page of the paper. It's been on the news. It's been all these things ever since Stop the Steal started after we won in 2020, and then there was the audit that was in the news for a long time. So I think that there's this like general trepidation about extremism, and the challenge for the Biden campaign is going to be to make the case that that's enough, along with their other things, in order to get some of the people, the Republicans and independents that lean right, that voted for him in 2020, to vote for him again. But I still think that Arizona is in play. Anyway, that's just a thing that I thought was interesting when you look at the regional comparison.
I want to amen what he's saying in the sense that the McCain wing of the party, or even the electorate, is what Tony's talking about, and they don't really have a McCain wing of that in Nevada. I mean, they do, but they don't. They don't have that person that held that up for all those decades like John McCain did, and it's why Katie Hobbs is governor, right? I mean, it's the exact same phenomenon. That's why I think Biden does a little better here than he does in some other places. But I think we're going to have this weird phenomenon where Trump wins Arizona, Gallego wins the Senate, and you try to explain that, and it's people vote differently for
A
president.
Trump Gallego voter? Is that what you're saying?
That's why I'm looking at you, Dennis. I know you vote.
There definitely are going to be Trump Gallego voters, because there always are, but I think more likely there's going to be people who just leave certain votes blank when they go, they're going to skip that kind of thing. I mean,
no, hear me out. I'm thinking the Latino voter, the young voter, who are animated by Trump, and he's winning more of them than he should in every poll, are going to revert back to their democratic way when they get off of the presidential and onto the other parts of the ballot.
also think that it's very interesting to look at the young vote and the Latino vote. So in Arizona, in 2020, we did better than all the other states did, the Biden campaign, in sort of retaining Latino vote for a number of reasons. I think our strategy was good. I think that's part of it, and I think also all the community groups. But one of the things that's happening is anyone who's done a national poll, because I haven't seen a state poll yet, that is exclusively focused on these voters, so it's a bigger chunk of voters. What they're seeing is that Biden is having a harder time than he has before with younger voters, for example, and with Latino voters. But especially with younger voters, it's not because they're going to Trump. That's like a misread of a little bit of what's happening. Whether you look at the Harvard poll, whatever, it's that they are not going to be there for Biden. There's a lot of sort of lack of concern, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of a path for them to be going to Trump. I think there is obviously more when it comes to young men. That's a thing, that phenomena that polling is showing. But so the question isn't whether or not Trump is going to take these voters the way that the guys at TPUSA and these other ones are saying. I think the question is there a way for Biden and the Democrats to get these voters back? And when you look at 2022, I talk about this all the time, Blake Masters, who's like a young dude, whatever, he only got 20% of like the under 30 vote, according to exit polls. 20%, which is wild. He won voters over 65. Blake did, not by a lot, but by a little bit. But the margin that Kelly got from that huge lead he got with young voters, he netted more votes than Blake won with his small win of a much bigger voting demographic. And so the question is going to be, young voters is going to be a battleground in Arizona, for sure. My idea is I hope Trump thinks that he's able to get them when really it's going to be about Democrats trying to get them back.
There's no unifying force that is a pro-Biden coalition. There is only a unifying anti-Trump coalition on the Democratic side, and that's getting dissolved by just the sex appeal of energetic Trump and the way he talks and the way he behaves and the way he has the big rallies, and contrasted with Joe and his inabilities to do any of that, and dodging the press and looking very old in his little short step gaits to the helicopter. Everything is touching young voters and Hispanic voters in a way that Joe Biden cannot touch them.
Well, it's just crazy to me because, again, I'll agree with that. A lot of politics, particularly on the presidential level, it's a very emotional, intuitive kind of vote.
It's
right?
all gut.
It's all gut, and those symbols, those images of Biden shuffling off and looking old and frail it's not everything, but it's something, right? It's a thing. But damn, man, Trump has been in court for criminal trial, and it's like
that's the fun part of
like,
all of
how
this.
come?
Wait a minute, you're not even doing it justice. They impeached him twice.
Yes.
They've indicted him in 90 times.
Yeah, but
he's
like,
in 4 jurisdictions.
I'm just saying,
and his polls are up.
But
so wait a minute, he doesn't have a gun to do this. What is happening?
Yeah,
what is happening in America?
I mean, Trump
is doing this.
Yeah, you want to hit a guy like he's older. Yeah, we all get old and whatever, and he shows some of his age from time to time. I get that. You know, he's not projecting strength and all that stuff.
Right,
like, I get that.
Right.
But, like, at the same time, people are, like, you know, hitting him on his shuffle from Marine One to the White House. Like, his opponent, Donald Trump, is sitting in a courtroom. Like, square that for me.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do it. It's hard to put into your one-word answer rule.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I
forgot about the one-word rule.
Go.
I forgot about the one-word rule.
I mean, it's the beauty of this moment phenomenon that is happening. And I think we all make the mistake, at least I certainly do, about fighting the last war in my head. Like, this is how politics is. Oh. But it's not that way. This is a whole different world today. Oh. The rumor is now back in national discussions about Democrats trading Biden out somehow.
There's a rumor among Republicans in national discussions that are very online.
That's probably where it started.
About where like before. I mean, I remember Tyler Bowyer from the TPUSA being like, "Watch out, Kyrsten Sinema, she's going to be the vice presidential candidate, and then Joe Biden's going to drop out, and then it's going to be Kyrsten Sinema." And it's just like, come on, bro.
The irony, all ironies, is that if any other nominee for the Republican Party other than Donald Trump were the nominee, that Biden would drop out, I think, because I mean he would lose to any other person. The only person he can beat, maybe, is Donald Trump.
I think they're the only people.
The other way around.
I think they're the only people each other could beat.
And that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
the poetry of that.
I think the dynamic I think that Republicans are missing is, and I think that they're getting really overconfident about this. And so you've got the wing that does control the party, especially here in Arizona, getting super confident. And they have no problem saying 90% of legislators saying we want to defend this 1864 abortion bill. They have no problem saying all of these things, which will help to make the case that I talked about earlier, that it's like, hey, it's a real risk to be voting for this Donald Trump guy. We have to remind you again of how it's a big risk. Here's all the good things that are happening you haven't been paying attention to. Like, there's definitely things that Biden can run on that he has accomplished, but that's going to be the big thing. And one of the stuff that's popping and polling in Arizona right now are voters who are concerned about democracy. Mm-hmm. It's a thing, right? It's really a thing, and part of it is what I was saying earlier is that, like, they've got Carrie Lake on the news all the time, basically saying the elections. So they've got all these things. If there was just a little bit of message discipline coming from the Republicans, we would be in a much tougher position. But this is legitimately what they're pushing for. You have a guy running right now for recorder who's going to run our elections, and I know that people don't care about that, but just as an example, Justin Heap, who thinks that
current state lawmaker,
who in a committee with other elected officials was like, you know what, I don't think we should have the voters pick the United States Senate anymore. Like, we should have the legislature pick. These same people had a resolution where they were like, you know what, that went before a committee where it's like, let's just ignore the voters and we get to pick before the election happens. Look, I'm not saying that's the main view. That's not how I believe most Republicans view it. But this is the kind of stuff this overconfidence is leading them to talk about, which I'm sure as a smart political person, you probably would prefer if they weren't talking about that stuff. Right.
Yeah, I mean, when the fringe is wagging everything, it's difficult, and that is the Republican problem. The reason Katie is the governor, the reason Fontes is where he is, and Chris Mays by a few hundred votes is where she is because of that Grand Canyon split between that moderate wing of the Republican Party, the Chamber of Commerce wing, and the other.
Well, let me ask Tony. Back to the original point with Biden running behind a lot of these Senate candidates, particularly here in the Southwest. I mean, Nevada. Nevada, not Nevada.
Thank you. Yes.
Right. Nevada.
That's right.
And Rubin running ahead of Carrie Lake, still within the margin of error, I believe. What are they doing that Biden's not doing? What are they doing better?
I mean, I think
what could Biden learn from that?
I think
from Ruben Gallego.
I think part of it legitimately is, and this is a problem we had, and I was I was the deputy in Arizona in 2020 on the Biden campaign, so I'm saying we as though I had, but there is that voters are concerned about age of Biden. That's a thing. It was a thing in 2022. It's why the strategy was they put him direct to camera more. Right? They had him talking, and then voters saw, oh, wait a minute, I guess maybe this is an exaggeration. But of course now they've seen, a full term of him as he's been aging. And so I think part of the reason why you have him. So anyway, I think that's a big part. I think age is one of these unifying things that is making people sort of, if they have a concern, they can blame age. And it's hard. I can say, no, the economy is better for these reasons, or you're going to, these are the blah, blah, but it's hard to convince people that somebody is not old. And I think that there was a bump that he got after the State of the Union speech because he did show an energy that voters had not seen. And I think, I don't know this, I'm not on the campaign, but I think part of the reason why he pushed for these early debates is because he wants to sort of demonstrate that to a large audience again with because the problem is that the Republicans have lowered expectations so low about what his performance is going to be that if he comes out and does an okay job, even though I think he'll do a good job, it's gonna help a little bit. So I think that's probably what he's doing. So anyway, the answer to this question is a long answer is I think that age is a major factor.
Yeah,
he's breaking the short answer rule over here.
Give it to me in 10 seconds soundbite.
I filibuster.
You said, what is Rubin doing and he's not the incumbent man in the White House. That's it. I mean, you can boil it right down to that. Yeah. He is a Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate, trying to be something he's really not, the most moderate of people. But that's a whole nother story. But he's just not Joe Biden. And that's it. I mean, it's people vote differently for president.
He's got a heck of a profile, too, that works with Arizona voters, aside from ideology stuff. Rubin does. Rubin is... I think that, being a Latino guy who worked as a janitor, worked his way through college, single mom, Marine, war hero, that kind of stuff. Like that gives him a starting point.
That's right, it does.
That then they have to try and take away.
And
from him.
Lake or Lamb is going to marry him to Joe Biden and is going to take his record.
Are you breaking
and peel
news
it
here?
out.
You breaking news here? You making a prediction?
No, I have talked to Lamb recently, and he's just got all the hope of a challenger against someone with all the money and all the name ID.
Every challenger
Are
I've
the
ever covered.
Republicans gonna switch Lamb in the convention?
No, yeah, that's funny. That's a rumor. No, but wouldn't it be a different race if Lamb were the nominee? Because he's not that radioactive guy that said F you to the McCain constituency. He's a very diplomatic, likable guy. Plus, he's 7 foot tall with his giant hat on and all of that. And he looks like he's right out of Central Casting. So,
Yeah.
I mean, he'd be an interesting candidate. But, I mean, Kerry's
And
probably
he'd eventually have to take off the sheriff's vest, too.
I don't
Would
know
he?
why. He should still be sheriff. I don't know if he would or not.
Would he?
Would he, though? Would he? He might show up in the... If
He might
was-
wear it on the Senate floor.
I was gonna
If you
say,
could
he
wear
might
a
show-
hoodie-
he might
If you
show-
can wear a hoodie as a senator, you can wear your sheriff's vest.
shows up on the Senate floor with his sheriff's vest on. We are running like way over time. Fascinating discussion here. We didn't even get into the ethics stuff. I know, Tony wanted to talk about that ethics committee hearing.
Yeah, the
this week.
Republicans are really scared. Did you hear about it?
I did hear about
They're
it. yeah.
so scared.
Well,
they're so scared.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can't be proud of how Democrats sometimes behave or behaved in that moment. You can't be proud of that. So don't act like that wasn't something to be embarrassed about. It was. Whether or not it's an ethics violation, I don't know.
I think part of it is
And
that
wait,
Republicans.
let's set the table a little
Let's
bit
add
here.
an extra
I thought we were out of time, but let's do it.
Let's set the table here real quick. We get through this real quick. You're talking about this is the first attempt to repeal the 1864 abortion ban.
Yes.
It failed. Republicans blocked it from happening, and you had some Democrats on the floor that started yelling shame, and
Matt
and-
Gress played
and-
both sides.
Yeah.
Democrats called him out.
Yeah.
And that's all of a sudden all decorum went to hell.
And all
that's it.
and all of a sudden there's an ethics hearing on that, and I've heard that it described as an insurrection, as a riot.
As a riot.
And look,
As a riot.
You're still
Look,
on the wrong
look,
side of this.
look.
Just acknowledge it's embarrassing, first of all.
I'm going to
and then
say
go-
this.
then
I'm
go
going to
where you
say
wanna
this.
go.
Can you call it chaotic? Of course. If you're going to call it a riot or an insurrection, I'm calling bullshit on that. I mean, look. I mean,
But Dennis, the reporters, weren't they scared too? They
Yeah,
were
weren't
right
you-
there.
Were you there?
I was not there that day. It was fucking
You'd
one
been
day.
a pinata. I'm glad you're not
Yeah,
there. They had
yeah.
strung you up in effigy right on
Yeah,
the
right.
spot.
It was like,
I mean, if you were a Democrat down there, you had a gallery full of people that that the legislators were looking up and yelling and screaming with them too. That were calling the Democratic legislators murderers, and people. Decorum was totally out the window on this thing. I'm personally not embarrassed about the fact that they saw Matt Gress lying to reporters and they went and they called him out. They felt like they had to do it. Whatever. Maybe it was.
Whatever-
it was certainly a breach of decorum.
Certainly.
I
There we
will
go.
absolutely
Breach of
agree with
decorum.
that. They knew it was a breach of decorum, but
calling it an
Jacqueline
insurrection
Parker
or a
saying she was
riot.
legitimately afraid that things were going to get out of hand is just ridiculous. And this is another example. They went a little too far. They could have said in this hearing, "Don't do that. You can't do that. We are doing the people's business. You can't scream and yell. We can't do these." Instead, they're like, "I thought I was going to be beaten by your notebook or whatever." Like,
Yeah,
it's just
so
a ridiculous thing.
ridiculous, man.
Annalise Ortiz, she's 5'2".
tough. She's tough.
She's tough. I've worked with her for a long
Threatening.
time. She can be intimidating, but I don't think she was going to go and beat anybody
She's
up.
tough, but she's not. Yeah, no. The whole thing is just ridiculous, and it seems like the whole point of this thing, this ethics hearing, is they want to call people as witnesses and grill them, and that's what it comes down to. Because there's no way they're going to get. Ethics. Any ethics hearing investigation can lead to expulsion, and that is not going to happen
No,
here.
it's not going to.
I think part of it, too, is that, there's a group of the Republican legislators that are looking at what happened with this 1864 thing, and they're thinking, it's because they yelled at us. It's because of these, they think we were embarrassed by the vote. We were embarrassed by these things. I think there's some of them that don't understand that regardless of whether or not they had chanted shame, regardless of what happened, the embarrassment that they, the scrutiny, I would say, that they were faced with from the media nationally and internationally would have still been there. And so I think some of them, they're kind of explaining it away a little bit, being like, well, this is because of how bad they were behaving, and then the media ate it all up, and blah, 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 blah. And this is a way to kind of get a pound of flesh to sort of maybe.
And I
stop
don't
them.
get it. Some of the Republicans over there who voted to keep this 1864 law.
Well, just say
they
the
should-
pro-life. Just say the pro-life thing, unless you really want to drive the Civil War argument.
Well, I don't like
now
that
I'm
because
playing Jake Hoffman.
No,
That
I
is
don't.
used pejoratively.
No, I don't like that because the pro-life, like what? Tony's anti-life.
Well, aside from that, I think
Is that what we're
You
going to
know,
redefine that?
no,
Pro-life,
I'm
pro-choice.
saying-
That's a fair label.
Pro-life, pro-choice. That
you're right. But he's fair. Okay, look,
Okay.
it's not an 1864
It-
law. It was an
it's a
1864 law.
pro-life position. That's what it is.
Well, but it's a pro-life position that was held by 90% of the Republican legislators, but only 20% of Arizona voters.
that may or may not be true. But I mean,
How about anti-abortion?
if you're more comfortable with anti-abortion, that's
I
fine.
know.
Yeah,
I
they're
know.
anti-abortion.
I know.
Fine.
The pre-Roe abortion law.
Whatever you'd like. but
Well, I'm trying to appease you now.
The year doesn't matter.
it does not matter.
The year
So-
doesn't matter.
The year
It's-
does not matter.
No, but what I'm saying is the people who voted in why it's important to say it this way, that repeal the law that dates back to 1864. I mean, argument can be made. Those same Republicans who are upset about the repeal of that should actually be thanking people like Matt Gress, because it probably ends up helping them and saving a lot of offices, come the fall. Could you imagine if Republicans kept that law in place heading into the November?
No, I think Representative Dunn and Representative Wilmoth and Representative Gress did a great service to the Republican Party. And
That's the only point I wanted to make.
Well, I would make it one big bigger. It's probably to the pro-life movement, because if that question's on the ballot and it's legal abortion or, to use your term, 1864, if that's the
Let's say a near total ban with no exceptions for rape or incest. Let's just say that. The year doesn't matter.
If that's the choice, then that thing's going to pass for sure. And now there is what was a 10 on the Richter scale is now way soft, and the other issues can come up and play their normal. And those guys, I'm thinking of Tim Dunn, a very pro-life individual, but a very pragmatic individual.
And so I was just like, to Tony's point too, it's like they want that pound of flesh, and I'm like, well, that episode is, why not just move forward? Why do they what's the gain here by taking
the ethics thing?
With the ethics thing with Annalise Ortiz and Oscar de los Santos? What's the political gain here for having this?
No, yeah. Okay,
It's personal.
It's not. Yeah, it's personal. It's a
Because
personal thing.
you would rather,
It's personal.
You would
That's a
rather,
great
if you
way
were
to
a
say it.
Republican,
That's a great way to say
that
it.
we were only talking about the
That's right.
immigration referral.
It's a personal thing. I mean, eventually there's. I bitch about the lack of decorum since the dinosaur era when I was there 30 years ago. It's just scaled down all the way. The way they treat one another, I think, is horrible in general. And then there's that where the gavel's trying to hit and everybody's just yelling and screaming. I mean, this got to stop somewhere. Both sides, pox on both sides. It's got to stop. We got to get back to the rules and decorum and the reverence and the honor. It's all gone. And that was just kind of a titular moment of that.
I am way over time.
Let's do it. Episode 2. Let's go.
Let's roll right into it.
Double it up.
Thanks for just violating the 10-second rule that we were
But we
striving
both talked
for.
fast
That's right.
and over
That's
each
right.
other
That was
to
great.
try and make,
That's great. I loved it.
which is great for a
Try to
podcast.
impart.
We
I
just
I
talk
really
it over
loved
each
it.
other.
I really loved it, and I think we're gonna just wrap it up there. It's nice discussion, lively, heated.
It's going to be 102 today. So
Thank you guys so much for stopping by here and solving all the problems here in Arizona.
You're welcome. Arizona.
Figured it out.
You're welcome.
All right, Colin, how the hell are you?
I'm good. You?
Another week.
Yeah.
Another long week.
Yeah.
By the way, after next week, I go on vacation for a week.
Nice.
Fucking stoked about that.
Good. Good. Doing anything fun?
Nope.
Yeah. That's fine.
No.
Yeah.
No. I may do. I may do something like some sort of improv thing and take off somewhere. But
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. I am a dog owner now, so I have to. That's a consideration.
Yes.
I can't just leave the dog alone for a week. That's
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's frowned upon.
That's
Yeah. No. It's totally affected our vacations over the last few years because we just don't leave the dog with anyone. So
maybe I'll drive her out to California. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't
enjoy
like
it.
she doesn't like many people right now, so that'll be she'll enjoy that. She does enjoy car rides now, though.
Good.
Yeah,
Well, that's a long one.
Yeah, that's a
I'm
long
probably making it a few times in the
Yeah.
next couple months. So yeah.
There we go. So, got another big busy week down at the Capitol, but let's end this on something a little bit lighter. A topic we like to discuss: sports.
Yeah.
As we're taping this right now on Friday, the new Suns coach.
Yes.
How do you pronounce his last name?
Well,
Budenholzer.
that was the question.
Budenholzer?
Yes. That was the question going in, because everyone's always said Budenholzer, and I guess we talked to some people up in Holbrook, where he's from, and they all said, "You're all saying it wrong. It's Budenholzer."
Oh, good Lord.
So we asked him, and no, we're not saying it wrong. It's Budenholzer.
Budenholzer.
So yeah,
Yeah, all right.
he probably said some other stuff, but we don't know what it is because we've been doing the podcast.
Yeah, my first thought is, Budenholzer,
Yeah.
Championship winning coach, coached a superstar on that team, was fired like a year or two after that.
Yeah.
My initial thought was new boss, same as the old boss, to quote The Who.
Yeah. I mean, he was a championship-winning coach who got fired for his first-round exit. So he's replacing the coach who has won a championship and was just fired after his first-round exit. I think we got into this last week, but we'll see. I don't know. It's a highly defensible choice. He's got the resume. He's got a terrific resume, and he's from here. And sure, why not?
Well, that's always great to hear. It's like highly defensible. It's like why I was hired. Like yes, thanks that you were highly defensible. It's why we chose you.
I always picture this scene in Animal House where they're picking new pledges, and they're like, "Whatever, we need the dues." Like, yeah, sure, okay. I didn't have any other candidates that I thought were brilliant. I just remember the year he won the championship, watching in the playoffs, going, "They suck," and he's going to get fired.
Yeah.
And then they eventually won the title that year, and I guess, well, he's probably not going to get fired then. You rarely see coaches win the title and get fired during the parade.
Yeah, I don't know. And I still argue now, a few weeks after the fact, that our Suns' takes at the end of the season weren't as bad in retrospect.
Oh, no, they were good. They were just ill-timed each time.
Yeah. Terrible stuff. Yeah, but it's hard for me to get pretty worked up about this. Like, good, I hope it works out.
Yeah.
But, I just, winning narratives doesn't matter anymore. Winning games, actually.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And, yeah, I mean, if the players buy into what he wants to do, they're probably going to be okay. Yeah. They clearly didn't buy into anything Vogel wanted to do, unless Vogel just didn't want to do anything.
I don't understand.
It was not a fun year.
What would happen if we just decided not to talk to our bosses for a month?
It may not go well.
Or if we just decided not to talk to each other for a month, this would be an awkward interaction.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
At least that's the rumor out there.
Yeah.
Other big story this week: the NFL once again displaying its dominance over American culture. Entertainment, where the release of the schedule and the dates is damn near a holiday.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we pretty much know already who they're going to be playing.
We know who they're going to be playing.
And then they release the schedule, and it's turned into this event, and it's just bizarre. And now every team has to have their own clever little, here's our schedule video. Mm-hmm. And it's the Chargers and everyone else. The Chargers do a brilliant version of it.
Yeah, you were breaking that down to me yesterday.
Yes.
If you can briefly explain why the Chargers.
And everyone has one. Like, I think the Chiefs did one where they would bring out something that was similar to, that would remind you of the city, and then they would crush it with a big power crusher on it. It was kind of funny. The Chargers did a release video that was all done in The Sims, the computer game The Sims. Mm-hmm. And they would have some little scene involving Sims representing that team doing something funny. And a lot of them are kind of inside jokey. It's viewed as a pretty... Mm-hmm. They're taking shots at a lot of the teams. The funniest one is for the Chiefs. They had a little sim version of Harrison Butker, the kicker for the Chiefs, who just gave a commencement speech, for those who are unaware, where he said that women have been sold a diabolical lie that they should be working outside the home. They really should just be at home and taking care of the family. And a lot of anti-gay, anti-Pride Week, a lot of that. In the video, the Chargers video, the sim version of Harrison Butker's in the kitchen baking a pizza, putting it in the oven, and it's just these little things for a few seconds, and like each time you see the little scene they do, you go ah, and then it's on to the next one.
Yeah,
like you figure out what's going on, and it's funny, and then they move on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Big question. The schedule out now. Do the Arizona Cardinals make the playoffs?
My knee jerk is no, but I really have to look more at it. The funny thing about the NFL, man, is the turnover each year is so great that you sort of lose track of where everyone else is. And like on paper, the Cardinals should be better than they were last year, which that's not setting the bar all that high. But this should be an improved team. And it's hard for me to, at least, I'm not that plugged in during the offseason. It's hard for me to gauge where everyone else is in their division and whether it's going to be enough.
Yeah, I think like last year, watch the games. They won 4.
Yeah.
They were this close to winning, probably should have, to winning 7. They blew a 28-point lead to the Giants early in the season. They probably should have beaten the Commanders in the first opening game of last season, and then, a kicker, blew 2 kicks in the last game with the Seattle Seahawks. So you could say they were this close to winning 3 more games, would have put them at 7
in a season where they were missing Kyler Murray for half the season. In a season
that they literally, it was hot garbage.
Yes,
they were playing with.
Yes,
they are better just talent-wise. The talent is better this year.
Yes.
They've got their starting quarterback back.
They seem to have a GM who knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
The coaching seems solid.
Yeah. And, I think people have kind of slept on it. I think Kyler Murray's a much better quarterback than he gives credit. He's given credit for. I think our CBS overlords or whatever, they had ranked all the quarterbacks, and they had Kyler Murray at 21, just ahead of Will Levinson from the Titans. Like
Levis
or whatever, the guy with the big guns.
Yeah. That's not a place you want to be.
No, but like, I think that's a gross underappreciation of that's ranking him pretty low.
It is. It's tough in that he's had the health issues.
Sure.
And I don't think the previous coaching staff did him any favors whatsoever.
No.
The ongoing Cliff Kingsbury quarterback genius thing is as mystifying to me as anything in the league. I've never seen any sign that he has any clue what he's doing there, but he's young and good looking and has a cool looking house that he can put on Instagram so everyone acts like he's a genius, and he's not.
No, he's not. He has continually failed upward and onward.
Yes.
It's just amazing.
Everyone wants to list the quarterbacks he had, like in college,
that didn't win under
and he
him.
didn't do shit with them.
Yeah.
How impressed am I supposed to be that he had Patrick Mahomes? What'd you win? Didn't win a goddamn thing.
Had a losing record with Mahomes.
Yes.
A losing record with Kyler Murray.
Yes. Yeah. It's
but he's an offensive savant.
Yeah. I keep hearing about his sexy voice from women coworkers.
Like what?
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Can't coach.
Can't coach. Yeah.
And
USC, when he became the offensive consultant last year, had a less than stellar record on the college level.
They sucked. People were acting like, well, you'll see NFL teams trying to hire him as their offensive coordinator. So then if they can get Caleb Williams, then he could keep working with Caleb Williams. Like, why? Caleb Williams was better before he had Kingsbury there. Caleb Williams was better his junior year.
I don't get it, dude. I don't get. Well, we see it we've seen it in this industry where untalented people get promoted upwards and onwards.
We do.
It's universal. This just happens to be in the NFL.
Yeah.
But back to the Cardinal thing. I think there's a potential to surprise some people there
Yes.
and do much better.
And
If they were playing meaningful games in December, I would be over the moon for that.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say their offense last year at the end of the season when they had Kyler back and everything was rolling was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty good. And that if you have that version of Kyler Murray going forward, he's a lot better than 21st.
Yeah, and I think you're paying Kyler now. Under Kingsbury, you were paying him to play hero ball. That's why there's so many highlights of him. And all those highlights from Kyler Murray in those first few years were like when plays broke down.
Yeah.
And he's running around.
Yeah.
And that's where the highlight, and he had to constantly do that. Now you're paying him to get the big third down, maybe maybe a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter, which we know we've seen him do that.
Yeah.
Over and over again. So it's a different thing. I think a good stat line for Kyler Murray would be, 250 yards passing, 50 yards running. That would be an amazing stat line for him. You don't need him to throw for 400 yards.
Yes. And their running game at the end of last year was terrific.
Yeah. And you've added, Marvin Harrison Jr. Everybody knows about that. So the receiving room, the receivers are much better than they were last year.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that I'm hoping people sleep on them a little bit, and I hope they surprise some folks. Yeah. I'm thinking best case scenario, they are playing some meaningful games in December. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be great. I could see an 8-win season.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
See. Yeah, it would.
That would be awesome.
All right.
And last thing I know that's near and dear to you that you noticed from the NFL schedule was apparently someone came out just and admitted it, that they tried to schedule the Kansas City Chiefs away games, to coincide with the Taylor Swift tour.
Near and dear to me, yeah. I had seen initially someone poo-poo that, and then I think the league confirmed it this morning, if I'm not mistaken, that they at least looked at it.
We don't know for sure, but let's just say they did.
Let's say they did.
We're not
it makes
sports
for
reporters.
A much better conversation if they did. I saw it on Twitter, which might be the ultimate dumbass thing to say in defense of anything. But yeah, and I mean, if you're the NFL, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I think when they play Buffalo, she's got concerts in Toronto. Yeah, sure, why not?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it, because I just want her to find love.
Yeah, I know, and the NFL needs the publicity.
Well, that's but that's the other thing. Think about the power of her right now. She's the only what? Who else could expand the popularity of the NFL?
Are the mics going insane on you?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm just trying to ignore it.
Me too. It got better, and then it got worse.
Yeah. So, but who else could expand the NFL? The NFL owns days.
Yeah.
They own Sunday.
And they're expanding.
In the fall. And they're just expanding. It's just insane.
Yeah.
That, you've got this pop star, Taylor Swift, that is actually bringing new viewers to the NFL.
Yeah. It's impressive.
It is. That is impressive, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, probably the only person who could expand the NFL at this point.
Yeah. I mean, who else is going to do it?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. And as the mic's buzz in my ear, it's probably time to say goodbye.
It's probably time to get out. Pull the ripcord.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Google Store, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. See you next time.